Hi, everyone. I'm Summer,
I'm Carrie.
and this is Hopelexia Podcast.
Join us to talk about sex, drugs, and self improvement.
So I don't know. And I think part of that goes back to that assumptions that a lot of people make, even professionals in the field, about why they do the things they do. Well, she wants to call you because she misses home. No, she doesn't. She's posturing, and it's performative either for other people on the unit or most of the time for staff. Because I would be able to, after about the first week, tell who it was because she would mention the staff, and it would always be when whatever particular person she was working at the time would be on when they had their shifts. And if they weren't there, she didn't need to call. So, so I'm like, so after about the third facility, I'm like, you know what, I am going through re-traumatization every time she calls me, which is usually about 3 times a week, depending on the facility. I'm like, how about I will take the phone call during family session for therapy, and the rest of the time I'm not going to be answering the phone, because it's not because she wants to talk to me or she misses home. It's because she wants to demand I send her things that she doesn't need and sometimes wasn't even allowed to have. So I don't know what the hell she thought was going to happen when I shipped them there. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, the even if the facilities where she acknowledged, yes, I tried to kill her, yes, whatever, there's still it's dismissed and treated as if that's okay. It stopped. She's not trying to do that in this moment, so it doesn't matter. And that's not reality. Like, that's not how things work. But the problem is with psychopathy, that is the way their brains work. They don't ruminate. So once that situation is over, it's over for them. And they genuinely don't understand why you are still upset at me for trying to set you on fire because I'm not doing it right now. And so when the facilities and their professionals are doing the same thing, like, you're just reinforcing that you're the problem because you won't let me murder you, I guess. I don't,
How dare you?
how dare you? She was so offended that I defended myself. So I guess she thought I wasn't going to. And I'm like, because I don't, she's never seen me. I'm not a fighter. She's never seen me be physically aggressive with anybody. Because it's just not who I am. And so I guess she thought that meant I was just going to take the beating or the stabbing, because she came at me with a knife. And so when I grabbed her hand, and then when I blocked her punches and didn't just take the beating, she was so personally offended. Like, I have never seen her so insulted by anything. And she's like, "Don't you hit me." I'm like, really?
It's
Like,
not funny,
first,
but I can't not laugh at it.
right. And I'm like, first of all, we need to have a talk about what constitutes hitting, because if you think that was a hit, that was a block. So we've got to discuss a few things as far as self-defense goes again. But not the time for that conversation about semantics. But yeah, like, I had never, that was an interesting moment, because I had never seen her be so personally offended that I didn't just allow her. I don't know. In her head, I guess she thought I was going to just let it happen. But I don't know. That can't be all of it entirely, because what she had done was she had been trying to lure me into her room, because I had built a 1-room studio for her to stay in. Right? So she had her own little house as part of the safety plan to, continue breathing for the rest of us, right? So she kept trying to get me inside, and she wasn't able to get me inside until she was trying to hurt herself, right? Which previously she has acknowledged that the only time that she self-harms, quote unquote, is when she can force me to watch it. It's a way to hurt me. And when she threatens to unalive herself, it's either to upset me or because she wants to go back to a facility and she knows that's the way that it'll happen. Like, to the point, one of the therapists told me, when she threatens this, do not call 911. And I'm like, okay. And then if she actually means it for once and does it, well, then you won't have to deal with this anymore. I'm like, I'm going to walk out of this room right now. I will not be calling you for a follow-up. Yeah, like, it's bizarre, some of the things that some of these professionals tell you. But yeah, I don't even know. It is, but anyhow, so she had been luring me in there. Sorry, my ADD is like, and I noticed after the fact, I did not notice this until the child welfare investigation was happening for the abandonment and all of that. She had, I had given her a, one of the little hook latches inside, right? So she could lock her door from the inside, privacy, whatever. Because the lock that came on the door is a key lock, and it was kind of fussy, and I didn't want her to ever like have it locked and then not be able to get out in the event of an emergency, right? So I had given her a different type of lock to lock from the inside. She had taken that out before. Now, it was in there a couple days before she attacked me, but she had taken that out and she had filled the lock, the key lock, with Gorilla Glue. So I don't know if she thought that during the attack I might be able to like try to lock her out so she couldn't get to me or something. I don't know what that was about, but there was clearly like multi-stage plans, because she had like 4 different weapons stashed in different locations. So yeah, there was like a whole plan. And when you tell people that, they look at you like you're delusional or have completely lost it, because they're like, kids don't do that.
They sure as heck can. Like, if kids can like make plans with their friends to like set out like this whole imaginary like play session, they can, create plans in that kind of way. Like, why would they not be able to like make plans in other kind of ways? Like, if they truly want to hurt you, they're gonna fucking do it, like.
And the weird thing was, so I guess she didn't expect me to be able to get the weapon from her. So when I was able to get it from her, and then of course I called 911. Sorry, wrong button.
My phone's about to die. Can I go get my charger real quick?
Okay, yeah.
I'm so sorry. I just got the notification. I'll be right back.
Okay, all right. Hopefully mine doesn't overheat.
I'm trying to get my dog.
Oh,
Come
I can
over.
just see you talk. I just figured you were talking to somebody over there on the side.
So sorry.
It's-
Technical difficulties.
Where is she? There she is. Hi, Reese.
Hi.
Puppy.
Does not care about us. Does not care about us at all.
Like, I'm napping. Excuse you.
She's like, leave me alone.
She's like, can you not?
Right? I don't know what we were talking about.
You were talking about when you got the weapon away from her. She was like,
oh yeah, she seemed really surprised. So then she switched to the I'm going to hurt myself, which I was able to take a couple of those weapons from her too. So then she literally just stops in the middle of everything, stands up and starts putting her shoes on. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm going to a facility, so I'm going to put my shoes on. Get ready to go.
as a matter of fact.
So I'm like, I know. So I looked at her and I said, so was this entire thing just a way orchestrating a way to try to go to a facility? And she said, no. But that seems to be what's going to happen now. So, okay. Okay. I didn't know what to say to that. I was just like, at that point, just watching her to make sure she was okay until the officers arrived. And then their helpful solution was put her back in public school.
No.
Do you not realize there's a reason she's not on campus school? Like, she threw a desk at a teacher in 3rd grade. Like, I will lose my job for the number of times I have to go up to the school. She has not been in on-campus school in years because of the way she behaves on campus. But again, it's well, if you were parenting right, they wouldn't be acting this way.
I really want to know what they mean by that when they say that. Like, what do you mean parenting right?
Most of them won't give an answer because I asked this question. But I did have one. I had one police officer offer his helpful suggestion.
Was it spanking them or beating them?
It was beat her ass. He said, I don't care if you grab her by the leg and drag her all over this property. I said, well, I won't be doing that. But thank you for your suggestion.
Even if you were that kind of person, she doesn't feel pain the way that we do. It wouldn't do anything to her. She wouldn't learn anything.
Like, it's not going to escalate her violent behavior to be violent back?
Like, she's not going to learn anything from it because she doesn't care. She doesn't view it the same way that we would. Like you've already mentioned before, like some of the stuff that would be traumatic for literally anybody else that's happened to her, she just thinks of it as like another Tuesday. Like, so I don't understand, like, I know they don't know like the specifics of everything, but like it's like boggles my mind that people think that would like fix it. Like,
I think it just goes back to that whole idea of kids who behave in a certain way are just undisciplined kids, which is not the way that works at all. Because I know a large number of kids who behave atrociously that have definitely consistently gotten physical punishment, and and then there are kids who don't get any sort of who may have passive parents that behave just fine, and then there's some that have really involved parents who try to set them on fire. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep using that example for a minute.
I use it all the time. Like, our other boys, over the summer, they were having a lot of anxiety, I think, because like they felt like they were acting bad, and they were like, we're acting like he was. And I was like, y'all, like, it would take like 50 of you to even get close to what I dealt with him. Like, you don't understand that, like, what I dealt with all the time was like nothing compared to parenting you. Like, this is easy breezy, lemon squeezy, okay? And they're like, well, like, what did he do? And I was like, what? He tried to light me on fire. And they're like, oh, like, they were just absolutely horrified. And they're like, oh yeah, we're nothing like that.
it's like what I'm doing for you guys is actually parenting. What I did for him was like survival mode, like hard.
Exactly. And back to the whole like punishment thing, like, nothing works. Literally nothing works. Oh my gosh. I sat down with his therapist one day, him and his therapist, during family counseling, and she's like, well, let's just go over the discipline that you've tried. And I was like, get a pen and paper, because I've tried it all. I've tried memorizing Bible verses that were, you know, related to whatever it was that he was doing, like stealing or lying or disrespect, like whatever. I had him reading the Bible. I had him writing lines. I spanked him. I took everything away. I cleared out his room. So literally all he had was clothes and a bed. That was it. Like I did everything I could think of. There was a list of probably like 30 different types of punishment. And she's like, I have nothing else for you to try. Oh, okay, cool. Thanks.
Thanks for the talk.
Right? Yeah. My daughter doesn't learn from, she doesn't learn from consequences. And I don't mean even just manufactured discipline or punishments. She, like, even natural consequences. I did this, it hurt. I shouldn't do that again. That doesn't, it doesn't register that way, which I later found out is pretty typical of people with that neurology. But I didn't know that when she was young. I was just like, I don't understand why, like, she hurt herself doing this. She's going to keep doing it. It didn't make sense.
Like when she got bit by the snake.
Okay, that was the most wild thing in the world. Like the going back out the next night in the dark with no shoes again did not surprise me because I get she does not learn. But the actually being able to see that she had no physiological fear response was wild. Like, because she came to me because she knows snake bites can be dangerous. She's like, I didn't see it, but I've got these 2 puncture wounds and it's starting to swell. So what do we need to do? And literally, that's how she's saying it, like really, really calm. And so I take her to the hospital and they take her vitals. Like there's nothing. There's not even an increased heart rate. She still got her low resting blood pressure. Like there was zero physiological fear response when the rest of us would be like, you know. And that was that, I don't know. Like I had read about that and stuff, but I'm like, wait, what? Really? Like that's really it took a while to wrap my head around that. And then the next night she was back out in the same spot. Because what it was, she got bit because she had a stash of stolen items that she had stuck out in tall grass. And I live in a clearing in the woods with a pond 50 yards in front of my front door. So at any given point, there are probably snakes in the yard. So you just don't go out there in tall grass when you can't see. But she was right back out there with no shoes the next night. Yeah. So yeah, she didn't learn, but fortunately, the therapist she was with for the longest time, she was with the therapist from the age of 5 until 14, and she realized, she's the one who first told me, this is the most callous and unemotional person I have ever seen, adults included. And she told me that when she was like 7 or 8. And I could see, like, I don't know what happened in that. I was not in there for that particular therapy session, but she looked pretty shocked. I don't know exactly what had happened. But so she had, she was giving me like a parenting model on how to deal with her, which is basically a reward system. And then later I find out it's basically the decompression model that Mendota Juvenile Center uses for their juvenile psychopaths. So I think using that is probably the only reason we made it to 15 or to 14 before she started trying to murder people.
The way
was
you can
just
say
that managed
so casually.
I know. I've come to yeah. I've learned to deal with a very flexible definition of okay.
I do think like the reward system like does make sense because that's what they want. Like they want things and they want stuff that they want. Like
right. It can help to keep them from escalating.
Yeah.
But it feels a little hopeless.
It's like,
Right. It feels a little hopeless sometimes because like it doesn't help them. They don't really they're not really internalizing any of this. Like, if they don't have capacity for empathy, they just don't have it. And that's concerning for me about what they're going to be doing in their adulthood, right? But I just try not to think about that too
I
much.
tried the reward system with my kiddo, and I mean, like, I tried even like watching him like a hawk, and if he said something nice, rewarding him for that, it did nothing. It didn't encourage him or anything because he was like, well, I'm not going to want to keep this up. I'm like, okay, good
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah, it just doesn't, it's really just like managing that. Like I said, our rules were basically don't hurt other people. It was not like you couldn't, if you wanted to get into the minutia of, a lot of things that a lot of parents are worried about with their kids and stuff, there's not enough hours in the day to try to address that with kids like ours. It's just not. And interestingly, like, people want to argue about the biological contributions. Honestly, her behaviors, we know that her mother and her both maternal grandparents all have psychopathy. And that was actually, I had not considered terminating my parental rights before I went to court for adjudication. Had not even crossed my mind. I was more focused on trying to make sure, I had all my documentation together so that they don't think my other kids are in danger and take my other kids. So that's where I was focused on. But the judge, because it's a small area, one judge for all the dockets, right? So she had dealt with the mother, the grandmother, and the uncles. And so she's like, yeah, this is exactly what I've seen for years in front of my court. Because she asked me by name. She said, is this person's daughter? Yes. She said, okay, it's not going to be safe for her to ever come home. Do you want to terminate your rights? We can do it right now. Yeah, I had not even considered it until she said that. I'm like, oh, we can do that? Because I had never seen it done during adjudication ever. Usually, you set a new date, and the DA was caught off guard too, because he's like, I didn't bring the the application for that with me. Can I go back to my office and write one or something? And it just so happened that the ICW worker had a blank form in her bag. And she's like, I've got one. We can fill it out right now. And so we did
how
it.
fortuitous.
I know, which I guess that's one of the benefits of having to cover so many counties is she makes sure she has a form,
Yeah.
copies of all her forms all the time because she's like, I can't turn around and go back. So that's how it all got done in one day, because she knew the family and she's like, no, this is exactly what I've been seeing. And see, these are people that my daughter has not been, it's not like learned behavior, because these are people my daughter has never been around.
Yeah.
But she's mirroring exactly the things that they've done. So there's definitely some biological contributions.
Genetics in your brain and all that stuff like can influence how you behave, even though you've never been around certain people. Like your genetics and stuff from them can still influence it. It's so weird. Well, what kind of stuff are you doing now to take care of yourself, Joelle?
Well, I graduated from therapy shortly after my rights were terminated. Imagine that. I am starting a new career in counseling, just waiting on my under supervision license to go through so I can get started doing that. I spend a lot of time, as much time as I can, with our kids and my husband and our animals, and there's still like if a sheriff's vehicle drives down our road, I panic. So there's a lot of like learned self-talk from my years in therapy of like, they're not here because of you. They're not here because he's accusing you of abuse again. Like, just let them live their life like they are you. You know, they're not a threat. It's okay.
Right.
And so it's honestly just a lot of like what I learned through therapy of like talking myself down and being like, okay, you're being irrational right now because they're literally just driving down the road. You're okay. You know?
I ask because like Summer and I were talking about that earlier, actually. Because it's hard, like when you have those trauma responses from being in it for so long to like let it go.
So did you have a lot of guilt after you let him
Oh.
go?
I had so much guilt because I fought for him. I fought for this kid to be placed with me. Like, I wanted him so bad. And then I'm like, I just gave up. Like, I just let him go without another thought. And that's horrible. And, you know, there's a lot of back and forth about it. And my husband has been great with that because he's like, there was a lot of times when he was with us that I was afraid that I was going to wake up and see you dead in bed beside me. And so like having those conversations, and then there was something that I watched. It actually may have been one of your TikToks, Summer, where like you were talking about what had happened a little bit, and it was one of your TikToks because you were talking about how she like her trying to harm you was just a means to an end.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, okay, that registers. And my husband's like, I told you that. And I'm like, okay, but this is like a different person outside of our situation who has happened to go through the same situation. And now she's saying it, and it registers. Like, it's not that I'm ignoring you, I promise, because that's not what's happening, you know? But
just clicks different.
it's completely different hearing it from somebody else, you know? And like, I talk to my mom a lot because she was there, like, even though she lives in Alabama, she was the one I talked to about everything. And so I talked to her. Her best friend's mom used to be a foster mom. And we all went out to Alabama for Thanksgiving. And so my mom, it was like all of us, like all 5 kids and me and my husband and my mom and stepdad's little 2-bedroom house. And my mom's best friend and her son, her youngest son, and her husband and her mom came over to celebrate. And her mom just sat there and watched him for a little bit. And she was like in her upper 70s, I think, at the time, and or lower 80s. I don't know. She was like, she's been around, like she's seen some crap, you know. And she leaned over to me and she said, "You got your hands full." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "He is so manipulative. If you watch him, you can just see how manipulative he is." And so remembering conversations like that also helped with some of that guilt also. Like, I'm not the only one who saw this. My mom's best friend contacted me and was like, "You need to get cameras in your home." And I'm like, "I can't afford that right now. Like, we're a one-income household because I'm trying to finish up school. Like, there's no way I can afford cameras." And she was like, "You get a price and you tell me, and we're going to get cameras in your home." And I was like, wow, you know? And so, like, having other people see how bad it was really validating for me. And then, like, I saw somebody that I worked with at child welfare in another town at the DMV, and he was like, "Hey, do you still have that kid?" And I was like, "No, you know, I had to send him back because he was trying to kill me." And he's like, "Man, that happened to me too. I know exactly what you're going through." And I was like, okay, so like people aren't going to judge me. They're not going to be like, oh, you just gave up on your kid. Way to go, mom. You know, like they're not going to be like that. They're like, that's some crap. Like, I hate that you went through that, you know, and so other people's reactions have really helped my guilt a lot.
I have it on two sides. So like I feel guilty that I couldn't help her more. Like I don't know if part of my brain thinks I have a fucking magic wand or something. Like what else could I have done? Right? I exhausted everything, but I still feel like, oh, I wish I could have helped her more. But then I also feel guilty about like I have 5 kids. And I've talked to them all multiple times since she hasn't been in the home. Like trying to make sure like I didn't traumatize them entirely for life because like they didn't make that decision. I made that decision for them to bring her in, you know, and yeah, it was the best decision we could make with the information we had, but that's still a decade of their lives that was spent with chaos because even though I was shielding them, like we had safety plans and we had cameras and we had like different, you know, I had things scheduled out to where they weren't alone with her and, you know, all of those things. So like they weren't in danger necessarily, but it's still chaos in the house when, you know, you've got a kid that acts like that. And I feel, I do feel guilty, even though they keep trying to tell me, no, it's fine. And I'm like, I don't know. I've seen your anxiety levels. That might be partially my fault, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I had a lot of guilt about like I really wanted to help him more and do more for him. And his previous foster mother, who, okay, so a tiny bit of background. He was actually the home that he was removed from was an adoptive home. So this was with me was his second adoption. And so the foster parent that he had, one of the foster parents he had prior to coming to me was his adoptive sister, um, his adoptive parent's oldest daughter, I believe. And she has his two older biological siblings. And so she understood the chaos because at one time she had all three of them in her home, and his behavior was so bad, she asked for him to be removed. Why that didn't dawn on me when I was his worker, I'll never know. But it didn't, you know, at the
Because
time I
he's
was like,
so
oh, you know,
cute and sweet. I
he's
can
so
help
cute and
him.
I can fix him. I can help him get better, right? And so I took placement of him, and she was like, listen, if anybody can help him, it's going to be you. But know that you may not be able to. And I was like, okay, like, I got this. Not a big deal. And then, like, the chaos kept building. And finally, I messaged her and I was like, so I had to send him back into DHS custody. And she said, I knew it was coming. His behaviors are too extreme. Like, she had two who had similar behaviors to him. And, like, the youngest was the one she couldn't handle. And so the fact that she knew all about how he was and was like, there is literally nothing you could have done different. That helped a lot. And then also, I've had so many conversations with my kids about like, did he ever do anything to you, like sexually or physically? Like, because he was at 11 years old, he was passing notes to other girls in class asking them to have sex with him, you know, 11 years old. And so I was like, did he ever, please God say no, did he ever touch you inappropriately, make you uncomfortable, anything? And they were always like, I mean, they're like, he's hit us. And I'm like, same, you know, but they're like, other than that, no. And my 7-year-old, he was 6. It was last year, I think, when when my kiddo went back. And uh, so he was with him off and on from 4 to 6 because we have the other boys part time, you know. And there's times that he will just like go off, like one of his brothers won't want to eat their dinner, and he's like, "You're being like so and so." Because like what he would do is wake up in the middle of the night from not eating his dinner, and then he'd go and raid the kitchen and get all of the ice cream and candy and whatever else was in there. And so you're acting a lot like him right now, and I don't like it. And I like it. Not the same. Like they're cool. It's okay. And I mean, like small things like that would just set him off because it would remind him. It would like trigger something in his brain that he saw my oldest, because the kiddo that I adopted was the oldest out of all of them, that he saw him do, and it made him so angry. There was one time he sat and ranted to me for at least an hour about all of the behaviors that he saw. He would steal. He would wake up like he went off like he was so mean to you, mom. It was just an hour of like him going off and just like purging all of this junk that was left inside his little 7-year-old soul by this other kiddo that lived with us. And I never I knew I was causing chaos in their lives also, but I didn't ever realize the true impact that it had until he was gone and they started purging everything. So I think all of that has really helped with my guilt a lot, because they're a lot better. They feel comfortable getting everything out. And even so, he's been gone over a year, and there's still times that they'll vent a little bit about something that they remember. And so knowing that, it really felt like I was going through it alone because I was his target for his abusive behavior, they saw all of it too. And so knowing that they're not having to watch anything like that anymore, that has helped the guilt so much, because they're not deserving of that. They're innocent parties in all of this. They were just kind of like dropped into it.
Wow. Hopefully I'll get there eventually. You're a year ahead. You're a year ahead on this journey of me. But yeah, it's, I don't know.
I'm glad your kids have the space to do that, though. Like, to feel safe enough to do it.
Yeah.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And to be sure you never miss an upload, make sure you turn your notifications on. And please come join us on social media so we can continue these conversations in between episodes. You'll find us at Hypoxia Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.